The Go Battle League is finally out in Pokemon Go, and chances are you are getting schooled in the Great League. If you want to get better at Great League PvP, you gotta go to class, and this is Great League 101. I am the Swagfessor, Ryan Swag, and in this curriculum I'm going to be going over the best picks, some team building tips, and the best resources to help you do well in Great League PvP. If you're curious about the Ultra League and Master League, oh, Ryan Swag, are you going to do videos on those? Of course I am, man. So if you want to know about that, make sure to subscribe to SwagTips. Those videos are coming out shortly. Here we have my Great League simplified graphic, showing you the basic relationships between the best Pokemon in the Great League. You can see here that it's functioning on a dual triangle system here, so you got some rock, paper, scissors inside your rock, paper, scissors. So you can play rock, paper, scissors while you play rock, paper, scissors. It sounds a little complicated, but it's actually a lot easier than you think. Also, I have some two groups up here. My face is actually covering two of the Pokemon there, and I'll talk about that after I get through the triangles. So starting out, the ultimate Pokemon for the Great League by far right now is Azumarill. It does have some threat for its position in the future from Jellicent. Jellicent's not in the game yet. Focus is on Azumarill. Chances are in the Great League, you've lost to Azumarill, and if you're winning in the Great League, you're probably using Azumarill. So yeah, ultimate Pokemon here, really good tools to deal with a lot of different things. So the question becomes, what beats Azumarill? Well, it's a Water Fairy type Pokemon, so it's weak to Electric, Poison, and Grass type attacks. For the most part, Electric and Poison type Pokemon aren't all that great in Great League PvP. However, Grass types are frickin' awesome. Razor Leaf is one of the highest damage dealing fast moves in the game. Vine Whip has really good damage and energy gains, one of the best moves in regards to that. Frenzy Plant is quite possibly the greatest attack in the game, and Leaf Blade is considered by many to be better than Frenzy Plant. So yeah, Grass types, really awesome, really easy to use, and because of their all-powerful attacks, they can hammer down a lot of Pokemon in neutral situations. So if the Grass types are so great, what beats them? Well, Flying type Pokemon have very little to fear from the Grass type Pokemon. Flying type resists Grass, Flying type hits super effective on Grass. So you can count on Flying type Pokemon here to get the job done. But of course, to complete the triangle, the Flying type Pokemon generally struggle against Azumarill and his compadres. Now you will see here I have two Pokemon mentioned that aren't released in the game yet. We got Jellicent and Mandibuzz. It is expected that they're going to have some good impact on PvP when they come out. Mandibuzz is more of like an alternative flying type Pokemon, but Jellicent is going to be pretty huge, so keep your eyes peeled for those Pokemon. So next on our list are the Steel type Pokemon. And yeah, the Steel type Pokemon here absolutely slam dunk on the flying type Pokemon. Steel types are typically Steel and Rock Pokemon, so they have doubled up resistances to flying type attacks, and they hammer down typically with super effective damage. So the flying type Pokemon typically have just about no hope against the Steel type Pokemon. Now as far as the other two groups in the triangle go, depending on what Water type or Grass type you're using versus whichever Steel type you're using, the matchups can flip. Also, prior energy, different shield scenarios can flip their matchups pretty easily as well. So the red arrow is going primarily to the flying type Pokemon. These two groups here are relatively neutral against the Steel type Pokemon. However, that makes the Steel type Pokemon even more awesome when it comes to team building because they absolutely smash one of these groups and they do very well against the other two groups. So Steel types, very ubiquitous, powerful options. So if the Steel types are so dang awesome, what beats them? Why don't I just make a team of 3 Steel types? Well, you have the fighting and ground type Pokemon down here to deal with. Yeah, so the fighting types are generally crazy awesome against the Steel types. The attack counter is the best fast move in the entire game, having the best damage for energy gains out of any other fast move in existence. So that, at a start, makes fighting type Pokemon really good. The Steel types, they're weak to fighting type attacks. And then as far as the ground types go, the best ground type Pokemon have the fast move Mud Shot, which is the fastest energy gaining fast move in the game, which allows them to get to their all-powerful ground type attacks very quickly to just demolish the Steel type Pokemon. Also, I want to highlight here, this is Deoxys defense form. Florka Cows, this is where the art is from, so if you like this art style, check out the Florka Cows. Didn't make a Deoxys defense form, so I just took Deoxys and I put a D on it. That's Deoxys defense form there. Also, not traditionally a fighting type Pokemon, but it has counter, so it's basically a fighting type Pokemon. So the fighting types and ground types, pretty dang awesome. Why don't I have multiple of these on my team? Well, these guys do have a problem. and that's this whole dang triangle. Yeah, so the whole triangle typically does really well against these guys. That's why I have a yellow arrow pointing to them. You know, the triangle's yellow. So trying to highlight that kind of stuff through that. But yeah, no, this whole triangle typically does really well against the majority of this team there. There are some matchups that can be iffy, you know, based on prior energy and shield scenarios, like Toxicroak with its poison typing does pretty well against the fairy types here. So there is some finesse going on, but generally you only want to use one of these guys on your team because they have so many threats against them, especially when you rope in the Ghost and Psychic type Pokemon that I have over here. And that brings us to the mysterious upper corner here, the Dark and the Ghost type Pokemon. Yeah, so these guys have typically less straightforward matchups against the rest of the meta. They have a lot of wins, but they also have a lot of losses. And a lot of their wins and losses aren't very clear-cut because their matchups are typically just straight-up neutral matchups. So it's hard to put them in a double triangle like this to make life easier for us. As far as the Ghost-type Pokemon are concerned, and Alolan Raichu here, Alolan Raichu and Haunter stand out because they are relatively glassy Pokemon. They can faint really easily, but they are able to finesse a lot of wins through their rapid energy gains. So they're able to just pound down something faster than they can pound them down. So very good Pokemon for that. Alolan Raichu is actually one of the hottest Pokemon in the Great League right now. Highly recommend you build one. As far as the other ghosts go, Alolan Marowak is pretty good against the Grass-type Pokemon. However, it is a little bit too slow to keep up with the majority of other Pokemon featured. And then Sableye here is part Dark-type, so it's the ghost that beats the other ghosts and also has some tricky neutral matchups. And then going on up, the Dark-type Pokemon. If there's anything that's solid about these guys, it's how easily they hammer down the Ghost and Psychic-type Pokemon, right? But aside from that, they also have tricky, weird, neutral matchups. Umbreon, for example. If you're not up against a Fighting-type Pokemon or something with a Fighting-type charge move, such as Registeel, then it kind of feels like it's anyone's game because, you know, who's going to outbulk who?
Zweilous
Is kind of a more aggressive version of the Umbreon here because it's got the Dragon Breath and the Body Slam spam. And then Alolan Muck. Alolan Muck is just a whole bucket of noodles. Like, if you want to use Alolan Muck, you do your own research on Alolan Muck because a little bit of a complicated Pokemon there. So yeah, so don't let these two groups freak you out. If you are relatively new to PvP, just stick to the dual triangle, and then once you feel like you got a working idea of how things work, then maybe start to dip your toes into the more complex side of the force. And before we move on to team building tips, I want to just highlight to you guys that this graphic doesn't have every single Pokemon that's viable for the Open Great League. There are plenty of other options that work very well, such as like Noctowl, Vigoroth, Hypno, other charm users. So this isn't the end-all be-all. I just wanted to highlight the most straightforward and easy-to-use ones to help you make your way through the Great League. So here's my graphic of the best leads for the Great League and their counters. When it comes to the Great League PvP for the Go Battle League, the matches are blind 3v3 sets. So your opponent has 3 Pokemon, you have 3 Pokemon, they don't know what you have, you don't know what they have. So how do you predict the lead against your opponent? Well, what we do know is that these top 4 Pokemon here are generally the best Pokemon in the Open Great League. If you're not using them to win, you're probably losing against them. Unless, of course, you are strategizing against them with their counter picks. So I decided to run like a bajillion simulations on PvPoke to find out which Pokemon beat multiple members of the group at the same time. And what I found was only Alolan Raichu can really pull it off. And it pulls it off in a pretty tricky way. It's not super straightforward 100% of the time, and you need to have Wild Charge or Psychic in order to take on Altaria. And even if you have those moves, it's not 100% certain. But yeah, no, Alolan Raichu is able to pull that off. Aside from that, I found that there are quite a few Pokemon that can handle at least 3 of them at once. So I decided to sort the columns by Pokemon that have the most consistent time against the Pokemon at the top that they're trying to beat. So using a Meganium to beat a Azumarill is going to be a lot more straightforward than using it to beat Registeel, for instance. So keep that in mind when you're going through this. There may be some finesse you need to pull off to win one of the other 2 matches featured underneath them. But generally, if you are looking for some good Pokemon, maybe these 4 are a little bit too expensive for you to build. Well, these guys may be some more budget options. Aside from Melmetal, that's not a budget option. But some of these Pokemon may present a lower cost option for you to womp down your opponents. So very good Pokemon all around. And then sandwiched between the Pokemon and the Pokemon that they're able to counter, I have a light abbreviation to help you guys pick their movesets. So VW, Vine Whip, FP, Frenzy Plant, EQ, Earthquake. FP is starred because it is a Legacy Community Day move, so if you don't have a Frenzy Plant Meganium, you're not going to get a Frenzy Plant Meganium. I'm sorry, guys. And then as far as team building goes, we'll consider the common, powerful lead Pokemon that they're not beating. For example, Meganium here loses to Altaria, so if you are leading with Meganium, you may want to back it up with Pokemon that can beat Altaria. Now you could use this graphic to pick a Pokemon that beats Altaria, but these Pokemon aren't the only Pokemon that can possibly beat Altaria. Which takes us back to this graphic. What beats Altaria? Well, you have this group and you have this group. So if you're leading with Meganium, back up Meganium with either of these two groups, maybe both of these two groups, just to shore up your weaknesses to the flying type group. And then as far as your third Pokemon goes, that depends on how you want to strategize. Right now you've got a grass type Pokemon, which hammers down the water fairies, and you got a steel type Pokemon, which hammers down the flying types, and generally does pretty good against the water fairies. For that reason, you could clean up shop with a flying type Pokemon. You could double down on the anti-flying type Pokemon mantra and pick one of the water fairies, or you could go for a more balanced approach and pick a fighting type Pokemon in case your opponent's steel type Pokemon gets the one over on you. There are tons of different ways to shape your strategy based off the third Pokemon, but the main thing you want to keep in mind for team building is to have a strong lead, presumably using my lead graphic, and then to have a Pokemon that shores up that lead's weaknesses. So grass type, weak to flying type, pick a steel type. Now I understand that some of you might be feeling a little overwhelmed right now, like, oh god, 2 rock, paper, scissors, and which one do I pick as my lead, and how do I counter the counters? Well, fortunately for you guys, PvPoke made a nice infographic giving you some cookie cutter teams to help you get started. So if the Great League does feel a little overwhelming, just follow this graphic here, pick one of the teams that makes the most sense to you, and start learning the matchups. It's a very good starting place. Speaking of PvPoke, yeah, let's get into some resources for you guys. Pokemon Go has updates, and even though I do my best to keep you guys informed on my YouTube channel, sometimes the updates happen faster than I can make videos. So what do you do in the meantime? Well, you use your resources, man, and think for yourself. One great resource to use is GamePress. Yeah, I work for GamePress, so clearly, right? And updating articles way faster than making a video. At any rate, they got a Great League PvP tier list, which me and the GamePress team keep updated with the best picks for the Great League here. So if you want to know some trends, which Pokemon are performing the best, follow the Great League tier list here. Another good resource is Silph.gg, the Silph Arena. Basically, any hardcore PvP lord knows about the Silph Arena. And yeah, they have some great PvP resources for the Great League, Ultra League, Master League, and their own Silph format. And yeah, you can see here we got PvPoke's graphic. We got my OG Great League Super Beginner's Guide graphic. Basically, if my other simplified graphic is a little bit too overwhelming for you, or you're trying to explain to someone they're not getting it, give them this graphic. It's actually pretty nice as far as breaking down the groups go. Yeah, we've got some other team building guides, videos, and on it, they also have my OG Great League 101 video from like a year ago. So hopefully that video gets replaced with this video. There's some picks on here that just aren't good picks anymore. I'm just throwing that out there. And if you don't like being spoon-fed information, you want to hammer out the data yourself, you got PvPoke here. PvPoke is basically the ultimate resource for PvP, like by far. Everything else can go away. PvPoke is the master. And I actually want to do a video sometime going over all the different features of PvPoke and how you can best use them. But yeah, the rankings, really good. You can sim out battles yourself. You can even train against an AI, which is awesome, especially for the Master League, because what am I going to pick for the Master League, man? I don't want to spend all that Stardust. Well, you can get some practice in here. So yeah, PvPoke, really awesome. And then you also have PokeBattler. Yeah, PokeBattler has its own PvP simulations and its own way of doing PvP rankings. So if you want a second opinion, a different sort of flavor for PvP rankings than what PvPoke offers you, well yeah, check out PokeBattler. And there you have it, guys. That is Great League 101. I have now equipped you with the knowledge to go out and conquer. If you got any questions on this video, comment below, let me know, and I'll be happy to help you out. And if you like this video, you want to see more content like it, maybe you want to know about that Ultra League and the Master League, well, make sure to subscribe to SwagTips. SwagTips. Congratulations, you made it to the end of the video. Yeah, so here is the beginning of my Ultra League Simplified guide. Definitely not a final product, this is a work in progress here. It's just I'm going to be very busy this week with work and preparing for the Rose Cup. The Rose Cup is basically like high-end Silph Arena PvP stuff. If you're interested in more of a challenge, definitely check out the Silph Arena. But yeah, I'm going to go into a little bit of a Rose Cup coma, so I don't know when I'm going to be able to polish off my Ultra League content. So if you want to get your feet wet, here's a way to get your feet wet, man. The starting of the basic. What I can say for certain, above all else, is Togekiss and Clefable are pretty dang cool. And yes, that is a Charizard.